talk about planning your warm season garden. It's going to be coming into a warmer time. And we do for our classes here, we basically do a 10 by 5 foot garden. If you do more than that and you've never gardened before, find it gets away from gardeners, they get discouraged. If you think of physical challenges, you'd probably want to do even a 5 by 5 garden, because you want to be successful on your first garden. The other thing we do is we ask the students to say, give us 5 of your favorites. We have had students who've tried to grow things they don't like to eat, but that kind of takes the fun out of your gardening. So we want to be sure that you're growing your favorites. So sit down right now and you want to grow your favorites. But what happens if you're going to grow in the summer or the warmer season? So you need to know what plants will grow in that season. If you put a cooler loving plant, it's not going to do well. So we're going to talk right now about what you could grow in different times. You'll find that with each area, they have a last frost date. If you can, usually we have extensions in our counties, and they can, or you can look it up on the computer. It's the very last date you're going to have a frost. If you're going to plant your warm season, we've got here for the 1 to 2 weeks after your last frost date, things like your peas, your beans, and the cowpeas are a bean, New Zealand spinach, okra, soybeans, and sunchokes. Sunchokes are a big flowering bush that gives you these kind of clear white roots that, and when they die down in the winter, you can harvest them before the frost or freeze. So these are the ones we can do there. The reason you want to do warm is the minimum soil temperature will be when you plant out between 60 and 70 degrees. The air should be optimally between 65 and 85. And we have people who always want to have the first tomato, and we have a warm spring, and it works great. Things grow, they're successful, they feel, look, I've got my tomato. If it's cold, though, with these type of plants, is they sit there. And as they sit there not growing, as it goes cold, they get diseases. So I had more students saying, we have disease, why is this happening? So it's really good to wait. If you can wait, get them in at the right time for your area. How do you know what's the right area? Well, it just so happens that the Farmer's Almanac has a really great chart where you go to there and it'll say, when do I plant? And then you put your zip code in. You can actually find out when these plants have to be planted, so you can not take the guesswork out of it. The main thing you need to know is there are things that are very tender, things like lima beans, corn, cucumbers, eggplants, loofahs, melons, peanuts, pumpkins, peppers, and sweet potatoes, squash, tomatoes, and like watermelon. They're at least 3 weeks after your frost date. If you're having air temperatures that are cooler than 70 degrees, you can wait. It will do better for your plants. They will grow faster. Keep them in a place that's sunny and warm, and they will do better. So what do? We get a list. We get our list of 5. Like, I really want some okra. I want some really amazing watermelon. I want it over here. I'm going to use the small watermelon so it won't take up so much space. So now I've got my plants. We usually tell them get 5 that there's going to be firm that they're going to like, and then they can there would be 3. And if you have more, you can go more. But you need to come up with at least 5. It just works better to have different plants growing together. Instead of the Farmer's Almanac, we use our area's extension, and we have a planting charts, cool and warm. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your area and make a grid. Every foot, you're going to make a foot grid on that area. So it's 10 by 5. You're going to make it into making 4 lines and 9 lines. You're going to make a 10 by 5 foot with 1 foot squares. Something like this. This is not that size, but it's the same idea. Then these are charts that I have. One I did up myself alphabetically off of the Square Foot Gardening book, and we're going to have it in the notes. But you can use that, or you can use this one, and we'll have it there, and you plant. So what you would do is you take a square and you would say, I want to do, kale. And it says 2 kale plants per that square. That gets you away from rows, which kind of limits you to what you're going to plant. And you can have a patchwork quilt of different plants, and you can plant more plants in your area. And it's really fascinating, because then you might actually be able to take a squash and put it in. Now, in square foot gardening, they say 1 square for a tomato. Well, if you live in an area where things are warm and they really are going to grow well, I have my chart for 2 squares for tomatoes. So for 2 squares, in the middle of the 2 squares, you take that, you want to have, that's 24 inches. We find tomatoes out here do 18 to 24 inches. Likewise, if you want big onions, we do 6 inches apart. They won't be telling you that. They'll be telling you 4. I'm fond of my onions being big. I want them big. But if you keep them 2 inches apart, you've got green onions, and you can harvest out the onions so that they go to 6 inches. So you can start with overplanting, enjoying your onions, and then have them later on. So right now is not the time we plant onions. We do it in the cool season. Last thing you really need to know is you planted. You get a great garden. It's beautiful and you're loving it, but you grew that plant that you went to the nursery. Having a sheet, just write variety here, the date you planted. So here's a variety. Maybe it was a Gold Rush chard. It had bright yellow stems. It was nice and big. It was really flavorful, and I want to remember that name. I may not remember it. I may not remember Neon Chard or Gold Rush. So I will write the name here and the date I planted, because it was really successful. I'd like to repeat it. And then how did I plant it? Did I put it in seeds in a pot and then plant it out and it worked really well? Or did I plant it in the ground? So you put seed or ground. And finally you have a note like, would have preferred having more of this. So plant 10 plants instead of 2. So that way you're helping yourself know when you're gardening. I find this really useful. I don't a lot, and then what happens is I got a really good variety and I didn't know what it was, and that's when I started using this. So you're going to, this is the steps. 90% of our students here can do this. They get their garden in, and once you have a plan, then you can plant. So get your plan done first, and then you can have a really successful garden. Stay tuned. Our advanced training is coming, and that will even tell you how to get more vegetables than you ever thought possible in the plot beyond this.